The Book of Adrian, Chapter 9. The Tower. The night air was thick and stagnant as Adrian and Father Gregor waited in the shadows of the trees, their bodies pressed low against the damp earth. Simon had gone ahead, his movements silent as ever. The only sound was the gentle lapping of the river against the shore and the occasional rustling of wind through the reeds. Then came the smell. It was faint at first, barely more than a whisper on the air, but it grew stronger with every passing moment. A cloying, sickly sweet stench that made Adrian's empty stomach clench in protest. It wasn't the scent of something fresh, something edible, it was rot, decay. But hunger did strange things to the mind. "Do you smell that?" Adrian whispered, his voice barely audible. Gregor gave a small nod but said nothing. His hands were trembling in his lap, his lips moving in silent prayer. Adrian had seen the priest unsettled before, but now there was something else in his posture, in his eyes. He wasn't just afraid, he was bracing for something inevitable. Simon returned shortly, his expression unreadable in the darkness. He motioned them forward, leading them toward the base of the tower. The structure was tall, its stone walls smooth and unbroken except for a massive iron door at its foundation. The door was thick, reinforced, and appeared unmovable. Surrounding it lay a pile of bodies, twisted and lifeless, their forms frozen in the last desperate moments of trying to force their way inside. The sight sent a shiver through Adrian's spine. Whatever had been inside, they had died trying to get to it. Simon's eyes moved from the door to the upper walls, calculating. He pulled the rope and hook from his belt and gestured toward the upper levels. He would climb. It was the only way. Adrian and Gregor watched as Simon stepped back, twirling the hook in his hands before hurling it upward. The metal clanked against the stone once, then again before finally catching on the ledge of a crumbling battlement. He gave it a firm tug, testing its hold, then began his ascent. Hand over hand he climbed. His movements were swift, precise. Simon had always been the best at this, silent, agile, fearless. Adrian held his breath as he watched, the faintest flicker of hope igniting in his chest. Simon was nearly to the top when something moved in the darkness above. Adrian's breath caught. A shadow shifted near one of the narrow windows, barely perceptible, then steel flashed. The rope snapped. One moment Simon was ascending, the next he was plummeting. He did not scream, did not cry out. The only sound was the sickening crack of his body striking jagged rocks below. His form flopped into the river, vanishing beneath the surface without so much as a ripple. Adrian's heart pounded in his chest. He could not move, could not speak. Gregor staggered forward, his face pale, his lips trembling in silent horror. Something or someone had been waiting for them. The rotting stench thickened around them, curling into their lungs, making Adrian gag. The pile of bodies at the tower's base seemed to shift in the moonlight, their twisted faces frozen in agony. The horror of it all, Simon's silent fall, the oppressive weight of whatever resided in the tower, crushed Adrian's will. He stumbled backward. Gregor dropped to his knees, his hands clutching at his rosary as he began to recite frenzied prayers. His voice cracked, rising in desperation, echoing in the still night. "Father, we have to go," Adrian said. "We have to go now." Gregor did not respond, his prayers tumbling from his lips faster and faster, his whole body trembling with fear. Adrian grabbed him by the arm, hauling him to his feet. "We can't stay here." With a final, frantic glance at the tower, Adrian dragged Gregor back toward the boat. The priest's feet stumbled beneath him, but Adrian did not let go. The terror of what they had just seen drove them forward, away from that cursed place. They reached the boat, shoving it into the water with trembling hands before scrambling inside. Adrian seized the oars, his fingers numb as he paddled, forcing them away from the shore. Gregor sat, slumped in the boat, eyes fixed downward, still whispering his broken prayers. They did not look back. Neither of them dared. The tower stood silent behind them, its massive silhouette looming in the moonlight, a black mark against the sky. Its presence clung to them even as they drifted away, haunting the edges of their vision, pressing into their thoughts. They floated in silence toward the ocean, the weight of Simon's death, and whatever horror lurked within that tower, sinking with them into the cold, endless dark.